How long should it take to implement your AI solution? The short answer is anything between 3 to 6 months. If your project lasts longer than 6 months, then you expose yourself to higher risks of failure. The closer it is to 3 months, the better. But the challenge often is business executives want to do a lot in a short period of time and very fast. That's just a recipe for disaster. So how do you ensure that the AI solution that's being built takes between 3 to 6 months? The first thing is to achieve executive buy-in. You need to be able to identify the high impact AI use cases and determine what the ROI on each of these use cases would be so that you can use that to prioritize them. But you also need to take note that sometimes it may not always be a monetary ROI. It may be ROI in another form. For example, you reduce the time it takes to complete a particular task. You improve customer satisfaction because you're giving them better recommendation or personalization. Or you're able to achieve higher staff morale because you're solving a core manual process that staff dread doing. These things cannot be or may not be directly tied to some monetary benefit, but the secondary effect of them would definitely be some kind of monetary benefit. And of course, in some cases, you can still tie in some ROI into those use cases. So the next thing you need to do once you have a list of prioritized AI opportunities is you take the one with the highest priority, which most likely has the highest return on investment, and you plan out the implementation. The planning is very important because in the planning, you're going to carry out a lot of workshops, identify who the key stakeholders that are involved in that particular initiative or workflow or business process they're trying to introduce AI into are, and speak to each and every one of them, understand what the pains are, understand where the difficulties are in the process, get their suggestions on how that process can be optimized, and so many other things involved, including which systems are currently being used, how the new system work, what are the gaps, what data do you need to interact with, and so on. All of this takes place in the workshop. So it could take you between a week to maybe 10 business working days, just so that you can get out all the requirements in a detailed format. Because this would now help you plan your implementation. Since you know you're aiming for 3 to 6 months of implementation time, then it means you shouldn't involve requirements that are going to take you longer than that to achieve. If there's any of such requirements, your goal is to break it down into smaller bits and even prioritize them to see which one can fit into this time frame that still gives you some significant improvement compared to your as-is process or workflows. The planning phase is where a lot of mistakes are made. Executives are pushing for more to be done in a shorter period of time, whereas if you take that approach, you're most likely going to take a very long time to implement the solution, and which exposes you to so many other risks. At the same time, depending on who you're working with, whether it's an in-house team or an external partner, commitments may be made to a plan that won't fit that time frame just because it wasn't planned well, or they are not able to tell management that this requirement is not going to fit into the plan. But you have to be brutally honest with yourself and weed out everything that is excess fat and make sure that you only stick with the requirements that are core to the solution, that are core to driving that return on investment that you want for the high priority use cases. Once you're able to trash this out in the planning phase, then it makes it easier for the next phase, which is the development of the system. If you do your planning well, the development should be quite straightforward because a lot of your thinking has been done, and all that has to be done going forward is implementation. You have your designs, you have what the requirements are, and then it's just built out. If you successfully build it out, it means you can deploy your solution and go live with it. And this is the very important part as well, because once you go live, it means you're able to start monitoring your solution, you're able to start getting feedback, you're able to see if you're on track to achieve those return on investment that you identified at the start of the project. And if you're not, you're able to correct course quickly. So in a 3 to 6 month period, you can identify these use cases, plan them out, build them, deploy them, and start monitoring. And the moment you start monitoring, it's typically easier to come back and adjust the system modify it, and correct course. And you find out once you do this, the team morale will be there. You start seeing your feedback, and you start seeing how you can incorporate other use cases along the way. And if you built it well, you had a very good backbone, it means it's easier to bring in all these other use cases instead of trying to do everything at once. At the same time, doing it in a short period of time lets you know whether what you thought was a good idea is actually a good idea or not. And the sooner you can determine that it's a bad idea, the better for you, the better for your resources. It's faster for you to say, okay, we've built this thing in 4 months, it's been operating for 2 months, and we can clearly see it's not giving us back the return on investment. Therefore, let's kill the project. It's better for you to do that than to find that out after 18 months of development with huge amounts of resources being put into it and all lost down the drain. Another advantage of doing it in a short period of time is, especially if you're working with partners, is it gives you a good period of time for you to build some kind of rapport with the partner, especially if you haven't worked with them before. You get to see how they work. You get to see how everybody works as a team. You identify the best ways of working with each other, which means if you're going to work on subsequent projects or expand this existing project, it's going to be a bit faster to do because you both know how each other works and operates, and you function better as a team. So I hope that gave you an idea of why it's important for you to build a solution within 3 to 6 months. The shorter the period of time, the better, especially if it's your first AI initiative that you're building in your mid-sized company. And I forgot to mention that this timing is for AI integration projects that involve taking your workflow, identifying the right AI solution, which involves taking an AI model and plugging it into your workflow. It may even involve rearranging or changing some aspects of your workflow. And you do this because you want control, flexibility, and privacy over your data. And not necessarily because there are no, third-party tools out there that can achieve you the same thing. So you could go and take a no-code automation platform, AI automation platform, and build the same solution. But then, of course, you see that you lose control, flexibility, and privacy over your data. So this is for companies, mid-sized companies that value these three things and are looking to develop AI solutions and are thinking, how long would it take, right? So you can still achieve all of this within the 3 to 6 month period if you do very good planning. And you should avoid letting it run more than 6 months. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, share this video, or add a comment if you have any comment to add. Thank you for watching.